My wife cheated on me with our family lawyer, and now she's trying to steal our $350, $0 house and $200, $0 in savings. She's even threatening to sue me for custody over our kids, all while I just found out she's been secretly planning this for months. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Emily, turned out to be a complete cheat and a liar. Honestly, I thought we had a good life, 2 kids, a nice house, steady jobs, and a future I thought we were building together. But all of that came crashing down faster than I could blink when I found out she'd been secretly screwing around with our family lawyer, Jason. It's like some twisted soap opera, but it's real life, and I'm living through it. It started subtly. Emily has always been a bit bitchy, but I chalked it up to stress or just her personality. She'd snap at me over small things, get defensive when I asked about her day, and she started working late more often. At first, I thought maybe she was just busy with her work at the marketing firm, or maybe she was just tired, but then things got strange. Her phone started disappearing and she'd always hide it when I came near. She'd delete texts, clear her browser history, that kind of thing. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the gut feeling was gnawing at me. One night I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I wanted to surprise her, maybe take her out to dinner. When I walked in, the house was eerily quiet. Usually our kids are running around or Emily's on the couch scrolling through her phone. But this time the living room was empty and her purse was on the table. I noticed her phone was on the charger, but it was unlocked. I hesitated for a second, then I couldn't help myself. I picked it up and started scrolling through her messages. That's when I saw it. A string of texts between her and Jason, our family lawyer, talking about meeting up, secret plans, and getting rid of the evidence. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How long had this been going on? How could she lie to my face every day and pretend everything was normal? I kept scrolling, and there were more messages, more plans, more lies. She'd been sneaking around for months, planning this entire betrayal behind my back. I felt a mix of rage, heartbreak, and utter disbelief. How could she do this to me? To our family? The worst part was realizing she was trying to manipulate me into thinking I was overreacting. She'd text Jason things like, "He's so oblivious and he'll never find out," like she was playing some game. And the money, oh God, the money. She was already talking about how she'd take the house, which is worth about $350, $0, and the $200, $0 in savings we had. She even threatened to sue me for custody of our kids, all while lying through her teeth. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. I thought she loved me, but she was just using me to get what she wanted. I felt numb, honestly. My hands were trembling as I read those messages. I didn't even want to believe it at first. I kept telling myself maybe it was a mistake, maybe there was some misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew it was real. The woman I married, the woman I trusted with everything, was cheating on me with our lawyer. The one person I thought was supposed to protect us legally and ethically was the one she was sneaking around with. It's like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. That night, I sat alone in the dark, staring at my phone, trying to process everything. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't even know what to say or how to start. My mind was racing, trying to piece together what I missed, how I didn't see the signs. I felt betrayed, stupid, and furious all at once. The next day, I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I had to face her, but I also had to prepare myself for what was coming, because I knew with absolute certainty that my life was about to change forever. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. I couldn't sleep that night, replaying everything I'd found in her phone over and over. The next morning, I decided I had to get answers, even if I already knew the truth. I waited until Emily left for work. She always left early, claiming it was to beat traffic, but I knew she was probably meeting Jason or doing God knows what. As soon as she was gone, I grabbed my phone, took a deep breath, and started digging deeper into her messages and emails. I needed to be sure before I faced her. I found more evidence, texts, emails, even some pictures from her phone. Photos she'd taken with Jason, some of them explicit. She'd been sending him nude pics, I guess to spice things up, and he'd been reciprocating. That's when I realized this wasn't just a fling. It was an affair that had been going on for months, maybe longer. I felt sick. How could she do this? How could she betray our vows, our family, and me like this? I was furious, but I also felt a deep sense of sadness. I'd loved her, trusted her, and now I saw her for what she really was. When she came home that evening, I was waiting in the living room. She looked surprised, maybe even a little annoyed that I was already there. She tried to act normal, but I could see the flicker of guilt in her eyes. I didn't waste time. I showed her the screenshots I'd saved, the pictures, the messages. Her face went pale. She stammered, trying to deny everything, saying I was overreacting, that it was just harmless flirting, and that I was crazy for jumping to conclusions. She told me she loved me, that Jason was just a friend, and that I was being paranoid. I wasn't buying it, not anymore. I told her I knew about the affair, about the plans to take the house, the savings, and her threats to sue me for custody. Her eyes widened and she snapped back, calling me paranoid, jealous, and accused me of not trusting her. That's when I saw the real her, the bitchy, manipulative side. She started crying, but it wasn't genuine tears. It was just her trying to guilt-trip me into backing down. She said I was ruining everything, that I was an idiot for not trusting her, and that she'd never do anything to hurt the kids. Yeah, right. That moment was a turning point. I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. I'd always tried to be a good husband, to provide and protect, but now I saw she'd been planning her escape and her new life behind my back all along. It was like she was trying to turn me into the bad guy, framing me as paranoid or controlling. She kept insisting she loved me, that she'd never cheat, and that I was just imagining things. But I had proof, and I wasn't going to let her lie her way out of this one. I told her she needed to leave for a while. I needed space to think. She started screaming, calling me crazy, jealous, and possessive, but I stood my ground. I told her I was done being played, that I wasn't going to let her walk all over me or take everything we built. I warned her that if she tried to take the house or the savings, I would fight her in court, that I'd protect my rights as a father and as her husband, even if it meant tearing her world apart. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me or use the kids as pawns. That night I sat alone in the dark, feeling a mix of relief and dread. I had confronted her, and I knew the battle was just beginning. The next step was figuring out what to do legally, how to protect what's mine, and how to handle the emotional fallout. I also started realizing how much I'd been blind to her true nature. She's always been bitchy, yes, but I never expected her to be this manipulative, this dishonest. It's like I was married to a stranger, and I had no idea how deep her lies went. I promised myself I wouldn't be a victim. I'd fight for what's right, even if it meant losing her forever. After she left that night, I didn't sleep much. Instead, I spent the next few days gathering everything I could, printouts of those messages, bank statements, emails, anything that proved her plans to steal the house and the savings. I also contacted a lawyer I knew from work, someone who specialized in family law. I needed to get ahead of this to protect myself and my kids. I knew she'd try to manipulate the situation, maybe even threaten to accuse me of all sorts of things, so I wanted to be prepared. When Emily came back after a couple of days, she acted like nothing had changed. She knocked on the door that morning, looking all innocent, like she was just dropping by to see the kids, but I wasn't buying her act anymore. I told her straight up that I knew about her affair and her plans to take everything, and that I was consulting a lawyer. Her face twisted in frustration, and she started lying again, saying she was just talking to Jason about legal stuff, that I was crazy to think she'd cheat on me, and that I was overreacting. She even accused me of spying on her, which honestly I had every right to do after what I'd found. I told her I wasn't going to let her manipulate or gaslight me anymore, that I had proof and I was going to fight for my rights. She started crying again, but her tears weren't convincing. They never were. I saw right through her. She kept insisting she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt the kids, and that I was just jealous and paranoid. But I knew the truth now. She'd been lying from the start, planning her escape while pretending everything was fine. I also learned she'd been secretly talking to a divorce attorney, probably to get the legal ball rolling on her end. It made me realize how serious she was about taking everything. I decided I needed to act fast. That's when I made the call to my lawyer, who told me I had a strong case to prevent her from taking the house and the savings without a fight. The lawyer also warned me that she might try to sue for custody, but I was ready for that. I had evidence of her infidelity, her plans, and her attempts to hide money from me. In the meantime, I started documenting everything: screenshots of her messages, copies of emails, records of her phone calls. I didn't trust her one bit anymore. I also spoke to my financial advisor to make sure the money was protected, and I started looking into legal options to freeze the assets if needed. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything just because she decided to cheat and lie. That's when I realized how much she'd been planning this. She'd been sneaking around for months, probably even before I suspected anything. It all clicked now. Meanwhile, Emily kept up her act, bitchy, manipulative, playing the victim. She'd call me controlling, accuse me of invading her privacy, and say I was trying to ruin her life. I knew better. I knew she was trying to spin the story to make herself look innocent, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I could see her for what she truly was, a woman willing to lie, cheat, and manipulate to get what she wanted, and I was done being her fool. The most infuriating part was how she kept insisting that the house and money were our assets, that I had no right to stop her from taking them. She even threatened to sue me for custody, claiming I was an unfit father because I wasn't supportive enough, which is laughable. The whole thing was just a power play, a way to control everything and everyone around her. But I had legal backing now, and I was prepared to fight her on every front. I wasn't going to let her steal my life, my children, or my home without a fight. That's where I stand now, still reeling from the betrayal but determined to stand my ground. I've learned that sometimes the people we trust the most turn out to be the biggest liars. And when that happens, you have to be ready to fight for what's yours. I don't know how this is going to end, but I do know I won't be giving her an inch. I've got everything documented, legal support lined up, and a clear resolve to protect my family. Because at the end of the day, I still want my kids to have a stable life, and I refuse to let her come in and tear everything apart just because she's too selfish to see what she's throwing away. The days that followed felt like walking through a minefield. Every time I thought I had a grasp on what was happening, something else would blow up in my face. Emily, of course, doubled down on her act, calling me crazy, accusing me of spying, and insisting she was the victim here. She even started spreading lies to the neighbors, trying to paint me as the controlling husband who was paranoid about her having a little affair. That, of course, was a lie. I had proof, screenshots, emails, and witnesses to her behavior, but she was good at spinning her web of lies, and I knew I'd need more than just my word to fight her. Meanwhile, I met with my lawyer again. We discussed the best way to protect the house and the savings, especially since Emily was already talking about filing for divorce and taking everything. My lawyer advised me to file a temporary restraining order to prevent her from selling or transferring any assets. I also started collecting evidence of her financial manipulations: bank statements, emails, anything that could prove she was trying to hide or transfer money illegally. The last thing I wanted was for her to drain the account or sell the house before the courts could step in. I also reached out to a private investigator, not because I wanted to spy on her, but because I needed to know if she was doing anything else behind my back. Turns out she'd been meeting with Jason almost weekly, always in secret. I got more proof: photos of her sneaking out at odd hours, texts where she was planning her next move. It confirmed my suspicion that this wasn't just a fling. She was actively planning her escape from our life, and she was willing to do whatever it took to get her hands on the money and the house. At the same time, I was trying to keep my composure for the sake of the kids. I didn't want them to see me breaking down or fighting with their mother, but it was hard. I'd catch myself crying late at night, thinking about how I'd been blindsided. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all the signs? Was I so blind to her bitchy attitude that I didn't see she was planning her exit, or was I just naive? Either way, I knew I had to stay strong for my kids and for myself. Emily, on her end, was ramping up her game. She started calling me abusive, neglectful, and an unfit father, trying to sway the court and the neighbors. She was even threatening to sue me for custody, claiming I was unstable and controlling. It made me furious. How dare she try to turn everything around on me? I was the one who found out she was cheating, who was trying to protect our family, and she was the one scheming behind my back. I kept reminding myself that I had the law on my side, and I was gathering every piece of evidence I could to prove her wrong. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, angry, and helpless all at once. Every night I'd lie in bed replaying everything, her lies, her sneaking around, her threats. I couldn't believe I married someone so manipulative, so willing to destroy our family for her own gain. But I also knew I couldn't let her win. I had to stay focused, stay rational, and do everything I could to protect what was mine. That meant legal action, gathering evidence, and preparing for the worst. One day I received a call from my lawyer. She told me Emily had filed a custody petition, claiming I was an unfit father because I wasn't supportive enough and didn't prioritize the children. I couldn't believe it. She was trying to turn the court against me, just like she was trying to turn everyone else. I knew I had to prepare my side of the story. I started collecting testimonies from friends, family, and even some of Emily's coworkers who saw how she was acting lately. I wanted to show the court that I was a stable, loving father who only wanted what was best for his kids. It was around this time that I realized how much Emily was willing to manipulate the system to get her way. She'd always been bitchy and demanding, but now she was outright lying, scheming, and threatening everything we had. The house, the savings, the kids. She thought she could just take it all and walk away. But I wasn't going to let that happen. I knew I had to fight hard, and I was ready to go all the way to protect my family from her greed and betrayal. I'd never felt so alone in my life. The woman I loved, the woman I married, was now an enemy trying to steal everything from me. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I wasn't going to be her pawn or her victim. I was going to fight for what was rightfully mine, for my children's future, and for my dignity. This wasn't just about money or the house anymore. It was about standing up for myself and making sure she couldn't destroy us with her lies. I knew the road ahead was going to be tough, but I was determined. I wasn't going down without a fight. The weeks that followed were an emotional roller coaster. I spent every spare moment in court, with my lawyer preparing affidavits, gathering witnesses, and building a case to stop Emily from taking the house or draining the savings. I knew she'd do everything in her power to manipulate the system. She'd threaten, lie, and even try to turn the kids against me if she thought it would give her an advantage. But I was ready for that. I had all the proof of her affair, her attempts to hide money, and her scheming to get the house. One day, I received a court order, temporary restraining order against Emily. She wasn't allowed to transfer or sell any assets, and she was ordered to stay away from the house until the hearing. That felt like a huge win, but I knew it was just the beginning. Emily was furious. I could hear her screaming on the phone when I told her about the order, calling me a controlling asshole, a jealous loser, and threatening to destroy me legally. She even accused me of trying to keep the kids away from her, which was a total lie. I just wanted to protect them from her manipulations. Meanwhile, I kept documenting everything, her calls, her texts, her meetings with Jason. I also hired a private investigator to follow her and confirm her movements. Turns out, she'd been meeting Jason in secret even after I confronted her. I had photos of her sneaking out of the house at night, sometimes with her lawyer, sometimes alone. The evidence was stacking up, and I was preparing to present it all in court. I knew the judge would see through her lies, but I also knew Emily wouldn't go down without a fight. The emotional toll was intense. I felt like I was in a war I couldn't see the end of. Every day I questioned myself, was I doing enough? Was I handling this right? The betrayal cut deep, and the anger simmered just below the surface. I was furious at her for lying, cheating, and trying to steal my life. But I also felt a strange sense of hope that the truth would come out, and that I could protect my kids from her greed and manipulation. One evening, Emily called me, her voice trembling with fake tears. She begged me to drop the case, saying she'd change, that she was sorry and wanted to fix everything. I listened for a moment, then cut her off. I told her I wasn't going to be played anymore, that I knew what she was doing and I was going to fight her in court. I reminded her that her lies and schemes wouldn't work, and that I had enough evidence to show she was trying to steal the house and the kids. That's when she snapped, calling me heartless, vindictive, and saying I was destroying our family. But I knew she was the one destroying everything, not me. The court date finally arrived. I was nervous but prepared. I had everything ready, my evidence, witness statements, and a clear plan to stop her from taking what wasn't hers. Emily showed up looking bitchy, trying to act innocent, but I could see the desperation in her eyes. The judge listened carefully as my lawyer presented the case, showing how Emily had been planning her escape, hiding money, and scheming with Jason. We presented her texts, the photos, and the witness testimonies. Emily's lawyer tried to argue that she was the victim, that I was controlling, but the judge wasn't convinced. In the end, the judge issued an order that prevented Emily from selling or transferring the house or the savings until the final custody and divorce hearings. It was a huge relief, but I knew the battle wasn't over. Emily was still trying to manipulate the situation, and she'd continue to fight for her share of the assets. But I felt a renewed sense of confidence, knowing that I had the law and the truth on my side. I was finally taking control of my life again. Looking back, I realize how much I've learned through all this. Trusting someone blindly can cost you everything. You have to be vigilant, protect yourself, and never assume that the person you love won't betray you. Emily's betrayal has changed me forever, but it's also made me stronger. I know now that I can stand up for myself, my kids, and what's right. I still love her, but I won't let her destroy us. I'll fight to the end to keep what's ours. That's what this whole nightmare has taught me. Sometimes you have to fight for your life, your family, and your dignity. And I intend to do just that. The final court hearing was the hardest day of this entire nightmare. I sat there, staring at the judge, feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and defiance. Emily showed up with her usual bitchy attitude, trying to look innocent but failing miserably. Her lawyer was trying to spin some story about how she was the real victim, how I was controlling and unfaithful, but I had all the evidence, screenshots, witness statements, bank records, that proved she was lying. I could see the frustration in her face when the judge read through everything. When the judge finally made the ruling, it was clear. The court ordered that Emily could not sell or transfer the house or any of the savings until the final custody and divorce proceedings. That was a huge win for me. It meant she couldn't just run off with everything, and I could breathe a little easier knowing I had some protection. But I knew this wasn't the end. Emily was still trying to manipulate the situation, trying to turn the court against me, trying to control the narrative. As I left the courthouse, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with anger. I'd fought hard, and I'd won some battles, but the war was still ongoing. I realized I'd been naive in trusting her even a little, that I'd ignored the signs for too long. But I also learned that sometimes you have to stand your ground, no matter how much it hurts. You have to fight for what's right, your home, your kids, your dignity. I looked at my children that day, playing outside the courthouse, and I knew I had to keep fighting for them, for myself. Reflecting on everything, I see how much this experience has changed me. I've become more cautious, more aware of the people around me. I've learned that betrayal can come from the people you love most, and that sometimes you have to cut ties to protect yourself. Emily's betrayal was a shock, but it also made me realize my own strength. I'm not the same person I was before, and I don't want to be. I want to move forward, better, wiser, and more prepared for whatever life throws at me. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, I'll say, this trust is fragile. Keep your eyes open, protect what's yours, and never be afraid to stand up for yourself, even if it means fighting the hardest battle of your life. Love can blind you, but the truth will always come out. And when it does, you have to be ready to fight for what's right. Because in the end, your integrity, your family, and your dignity are worth every ounce of the struggle. I've learned that the hard way, but I'm grateful I did. Now I'm finally looking ahead, ready to rebuild what was broken and to make sure my kids know they're loved and protected, no matter what.